as you guys know, there was a little bit of tumult going on within the MapleStory community about the whole video that Andough made about the Absolab stuff and whether you could skip it and whether it was a huge waste of money. And there was a reply recently on Reddit. I just wanted to go over all the things. So yeah, little intro on the video and why we're doing it this way. So in the beginning, people sent the video to me because the Andough is in our guild, in the Scardor guild, and also because my name was mentioned in the description of the video. I see that he has since added, this is not advice from Scardor, because some people were saying that. I haven't watched the video yet. I wanted to do like a clean blind view. Of course, I've heard some chatter about it, but a clean blind view during this video. Just to give you guys a little bit of an insight on how I would deal with that information. Yeah, so I'll just read off what I wrote down here, paraphrase a little bit. I already did a little bit of that. But I don't want to make the video about me because I was mentioned. I wanted to make it about information, how we gather information, how we can we check the validity of information, right? So a little bit the meta conversation surrounding and like how do we deal with when somebody says something that we disagree with, and how do you know for sure that you should be disagreeing or agreeing, right? Because a lot of times in stream, sometimes people will ask me like, is this and this true? They'll come with some fact, and sometimes it will be, sometimes it won't be, sometimes it'll be partially correct. But a lot of times I'll ask them like, well, you're asking me now if it's correct, right? Did you ask the person who told you that initially? Did you ask that person where they got that information or why that was the case? And a lot of times they'll either say no, or they say they just heard it from someone else before that. But you could have like a case of, I don't know what you guys call it, broken telephone or Chinese whispers, right? Where somebody said something in the beginning that was probably pretty true, but then in passing that information along, sometimes something got muddied, not the whole information got through, some of the information got outdated, right? It happens very easily because MapleStory is constantly in flux. Whatever is best in slot, whatever is considered something worth going for, a lot of that is constantly moving. So therefore, I think it's important when somebody gives you information that you get some kind of feedback on that. If you're either doubtful or you want to make sure that it's correct, like, hey, where did you get that information, right? Like, how did you gather that? Because if they can say like, oh, I just heard it from someone and that's the best they've got, then you know that you have to kind of keep in mind that it could be wrong or could be outdated, right? But if they say like, oh, here's a website, this is completely up to date, like here are the numbers, right? Then it's a much more sturdy thing, and then you can go. Now, I understand you can't be that thorough with absolutely everything that you hear, but if you care enough about it to build like your account on, your progression on, I think you owe to yourself to do a little bit of due diligence at the moment that you get the information, right? So yeah, I wrote down here, it makes it hard to trace the roots, right? If information keeps changing, usually it's partially right, partially outdated, partially, or it's completely correct, but how will you know? So that being said, it's easy to just condemn and ignore people if you figure out that one thing they said one time is wrong, or if it's just wrong in your opinion, right? That's very easy to do, but you might miss out on a lot of correct information as well. Now I understand there is a lot of information out there, so you have to make a decision somewhere, right? Like, I don't watch every single person on YouTube either. If I see like 2 or 3 bad things about someone, I'm probably not going to be inclined to watch this stuff anymore either, because there is just so much to watch. So why would I spend time on something that I think has a higher likelihood of not being helpful for me or being wrong, right? That makes sense. So I just want to make sure that we apply to get a little bit into it, but to apply Hanlon's razor here, that it is probably more likely that there was some missing information or misinterpretation of information rather than malice. Because I have been seeing that some people were accusing, especially since the second video came out, accusing this person that they were purposefully trying to be malicious and controversial so that they would become like a huge content creator on YouTube or something, or, you know, launch their career as a content creator, rather than this is just someone that thought they had some information that they thought could help a bunch of people and maybe didn't have the entire information correctly or went about it in a way that was a little bit too controversial or whatever. But again, I haven't seen it yet, so I'm just going to watch it and we'll see what my verdict is. So part 2 of the video will be that I'm just watching the video. I'll take some notes. From what I heard and what I guess it's probably about, it's probably a misconception on whether you should or whether you could skip Absolab. and whether that's an interesting or idea to do, and whether that's something you should consider. I'm guessing that's probably what the video is about. It's probably posed as a little bit too rigorous of a you should because it's better, rather than it's an option depending on what stage of the game your account is in. I'm going to assume that that's what the whole video is about and what the disagreement is about. But yeah, I could definitely be swayed either way if I check the video. Let me see what I wrote down here. So necessary obligatory to go to root of Absolab gear, because I wrote this down yesterday. I already axed a bunch of stuff out. Okay, cool. Yeah, and then so I'll go through the video. I'll go through both of the videos, and we'll just kind of like talk about what is what I think is going on, and what I agree with, what I disagree with, and why I do. And then that's part 3 is going to be the second video, and then part 4 we're going to actually just talk, which I think that's a useful thing, to the person who made the video, and just talk about the feedback and kind of how they experienced launching the video and the kind of replies that they got and everything, and how they feel about the whole situation. Because I think that's the one thing that's missing, is a lot of people are just talking about the person and about what they probably think and about what their intentions were, rather than just talking to the person and just asking them. And I've noticed to make it a little bit about me again, that happens to me a lot as well. And I wonder why we do that. And I'd like for us to not do that, to talk about people rather to talk with them. So I'm going to, instead of just like pointing a finger, trying to lead by example and trying to do that today, so that we can just hear it, from the mouth of the beast himself, rather than speculate a whole lot. And then we'll have a final conclusion. So hopefully that'll be a good way of going through all the information, and hopefully you guys will enjoy that process, and we can all get some closure, I guess, or get some answers to some questions that we might have. All right, so without further ado, let's get into the video, and I guess I'll just turn off the background music, and we'll see if it interferes too much. Here we go.
Hey everybody, so I'm coming at you with a video to tell you that you're wasting too much mesos on Reboot on your main, okay? If this is your first character in Reboot...
God, this is so quiet. Please upload all your videos at max volume so I can still turn it down, because turning down is easy, turning up is very hard. Please upload louder. Yeah, you're saying turn it up, but you can physically see that it's on max, so there's nothing I can do.
Please don't get any Absolab gear, okay? Absolab gear is a complete bait. Okay, why? Because you can get to endgame without ever touching Lotus or Damien. I'm going to show you how, okay?
Absolab is bait. Can get to endgame without lockdown. Okay, that's pretty not factionally. I'd say the first part is wrong, second part is not necessarily wrong. I guess I'll reply in the moment, because this is already a lot to unpack. But I would say Absolab is not bait, especially not if it's a new account. You could technically get to endgame without touching Lotus and Damien, that's true, but you'll probably have to get carried through some stuff, or you'll have to really overcompensate with other pieces of gear that exist, or with stuff, right? So like what I was saying, like depending on the state of your account. So if you work a lot on Legion first, and you're at like 6.5 or like higher Legion before you even start playing on your main character, or you level very slowly, you're only doing Monster Park and dailies, your arcane power is way higher, you get a lot of stat from that, you might be able to completely skip it. That's definitely a possibility. But to say that therefore you should, that is like a leap that he's going to have to substantiate here. So we'll see how he does that.
Okay, your WSE, that's your weapon, your secondary, and your emblem. You want those at legendary and with great pots. Okay, so here my weapon, it's an 18-star Fafnir for the 4 set.
Okay, so we'll magnify that a little bit. So this is how he's going to substantiate, I guess, the not needing it.
Okay, has a good flame and has a great potential. Okay, your secondary, this one has 35
WC is definitely going to be the most
magic
important.
Attack, the 9 damage is okay.
3 useful lines, yeah.
And my emblem, 24% magic attack, 9 luck. It's alright. It's not endgame, but it's close enough for now. Okay? Your badge, you have your Magnus badge. You get your 7-day Monster Parker. You get
So 7-day Monster Parker is a nice thing to mention here. 7-day Monster Parker means you're already like 11 weeks in. So this means that if you're going to include that and like this is what you can do, that for a lot of people already is like 11 weeks into 11 weekends to Monster Parker. For most people is already going to mean that in the same time they will already have like full Abzo, depending on how much they play, especially if they have multi-characters that they can do the weeklies and pack the weeklies up with. People will want to progress and tend to progress way faster through the game, and they will have full Abzo before they're even, I want to say probably, well, never like at the halfway mark for a Monster Parker. Now that's like, that I'm pulling a little bit out of my ass as like an estimate, but I am pretty sure that people are serious about this game and want to progress.
Is the topic starting now?
Yes. No, it's already started. Are definitely going to, thank you for the 4 months, dude. Are already going to be at Abzo or have pretty much a full set way before the Monster Parker is completed. Which means that the set bonus and extra IED there is going to come into play before a little bit of IED from the Monster Parker comes into play. But again, we're probably going to have most of the discussion about like whether you can or whether you should. That's going to be the big differentiator
Hard
here.
if you can from an event.
Hard is very situational, of course.
And here's the big thing. Oh, of course, you have your Golux set, your 4-piece Golux set for the 30% boss, 30% IED.
So he's talking about 4-set Golux as well. 4-set Golux is if you can kill. Well, we're not even talking about hard lux. I don't even want to do the maths on how long you have to do hard lux to buy all the pieces, right? Because then you're definitely you should already be arcanes at that point, probably. But if you're going 4-set superior, that's like, what is it, like 30 coins per run? So it's like 23 runs or something. So you're looking at like 40. I thought it was like almost a month of running per, a little bit less than a month, right? But it's like 4, I don't know. It's like 8 weeks-ish if you get all the drops, right? So that's 8 weeks after level probably 230, and this is 11 weeks after level 105. So this is how we can like situate where we're kind of at in terms of progress in the game, right? Because I think most people will be killing Helix, starting to solo Helix, probably around the same time that you can solo Lotus and Damien.
Okay, but I want you to know that.
And that is a lot of value
my
though.
Equipment aren't even legendary yet. So let's see.
I'm gonna actually speed this one up so that we can respond a little bit faster.
We have unique, epic.
Unique is good. If you're gonna go unique on the glove, I would probably value decent sharp eyes with a line of stat over 2 lines of stat, because you can get a free matrix slot out of it, and sharp eyes is a unique line. So I would, and you know, monster crossman cubes are pretty common to do. This kind of looks like the setup for like somebody who's trying to full solo everything. I don't know if he's ever gonna mention that, because if you're like full soloing, that's definitely something. It's also interesting to see that he's got a twilight mark, which typically does not come into play until way after your Abzo viability.
What else are we? Unique, epic, unique, epic.
Was the pendant transposed? I didn't see if it was.
Unique, epic.
Yeah, that is transposed. Oh, geez, that's kind of a sick flame as well. It's an 80 and 6 transposed. You know, 80. I don't want to do the maths right. Oh well, we could do the maths right now. You know, we're doing this video. We might as well. You know, I don't know how nitpicky we want to get, but like the cost calculator, if we want to throw in an 80 and 6 on a, go away. I already donated to you. Okay. 9, 3, 10, 80. 6, 9, 54, 134. Yeah, that's like 100 and what, 191 bill flame. Of course, you can't really count that in because you can luck into it, and there's a good chance you luck into a good flame on something at least. But it's like one of the compounding factors, right? What was it? 190 bill flame on pendant plus Twilight Mark. Although I think the Twilight Mark is not really an argument here because it doesn't have a slime ring, right? So Twilight Mark by itself isn't actually that important because it's actually worse than a or kind of worse, barely about the same as a tattoo would be at this point.
Unique, epic, okay? And these...
No,
so
not
I got
86,
24%
80.
int, 24% int, and I got a superior ring to, what is this? Also 24% int, okay?
24, 24. He's got some
But most of
drop
my
rate stuff
if they can't
on.
17 starred, they're 17 starred right now.
That's pretty standard, around 240, I would say. You're trying to
Right.
squeeze in. His shoes like 32 and 4. Yeah, it's pretty
This is
standard
exactly
flame.
how I'm going to be killing bosses. Okay, I've killed normal Lucid a bunch of times in parties already. Let's see, where am I? I have 10 droplets so far, okay? And I have 94 of my arcane droplets. And again, I haven't touched Lotus or Damien, because you don't see any of the Lotus and Damien stuff here. Okay, I don't even have the pre-quest completed. See, unavailable, unavailable, okay? But with this gear, I'm able to clear Lomian. Sorry, not Lomian, Lucid and Will, okay? And I have enough skills because I've practiced Will enough to be doing Will, alright?
Also, kind of should be said, I guess, that he is a support character. Not as much pressure on DPS, right? As a support, you can get away with more as well. You're not gonna be as discounted for like not having a certain BA when you're doing the bosses. So it's that's also a factor in this whole thing.
I'm just going to replace this Empress gear at some point. Once I get enough droplets from Lucid, and I can buy the droplets for, I think, like 5 bill a piece of Arcane, but I can just buy the gloves at the store afterwards. Let's see. Okay, so this is my next upgrade. I'm going to be going for the Arcane Umbra Mage gloves straight out of Empress. Okay, I didn't waste any time getting Absolab gloves. I didn't waste time.
Yeah, waste is a strong word there. Waste already implies, you know, that you shouldn't, and that it's to him it's not a waste. I wonder if he shows what level his symbols are, because I wouldn't be surprised if his symbols are super high level because he plays more casually and spends more days playing Maple. Like his amount of hours per day is very low, but his amount of days is very high, which means the hours catch up. That's how I play as well, right? Most of the time my characters will max their symbols by like level 245 or something, just because I'm not actively grinding them. But most people, they get to 250, 255, 260, and all of their symbols aren't even maxed yet because of a different pacing on where you spend your time. But I would like to see...
Star forcing Absolab gloves, and I didn't waste time or mesos.
like to see what his arcane symbols are at, because that would be a huge indicator of how many days he
Same thing
plays.
for my weapon, right? Yes, it's a little bit of a crappy weapon for a very long time, alright? But it's going to hold you over, alright? This is 18 star. Okay, I do recommend 18 star on this. 17 is good, but 18 is a little bit better. Everything else should be 17 or under, though. Yeah. This is 18, but obviously if you're not a mage, you don't get a secondary like this. Look, everything is just 17 starred or under. This was an 80 and 6 Dominator pendant before, and I just got the transpose, and I got a great potential on it. Okay. Let's go my stats real quick. I do have 91% IED. I use familiars.
Familiars ID. Oh, he's just that one. No, arcane power is at 1040 with, and it's in red, so it's probably like around 1000. 1000 means 32 levels missing over 6, such an average of 5 missing on each. Yeah. Yeah, so his symbols are decently high. They're not completely out of whack. Wait, make a check with exclamation mark. Progression. Where do I have the arcane power set around 240? Because that's the middle of the stage, right? Yeah, 840. Okay, yeah. So he's a little bit over for his level. That's what I assumed. So that means he's playing a little bit more slowly. And again, that means he's doing more of a like struggle progression, and he's not trying to go as fast as humanly possible just to sprint to the finish line. That's like a mental slower, slightly more casual progression. That's a mental thing as well that most people are going to disagree with it just because of they want to go faster. They have more pressure on them to need to do that damage. They need their BA to get up, and they want to be there faster. They don't want to spend forever in the mid game and in the early late game. They want to get to late. They want to get to end game, right? So they're going to be aiming for different things. They're going to have different priorities. So if you see blanketly say like Abs was a waste of time, to these people it's just not going to sink in, because to them it's not. And so the most important thing I think, well, I thought already before starting the video, is going to be more like, hey, there were different options, right? You could consider this based on your situation. You could consider this based on your situation. But neither of these is like the one true way of doing it. But proclaiming it as such is going to ruffle some feathers, right?
Go to 94%. And if I also add in my pink aura, it should get
Whoa.
95%. I did not. Oh, look, I'm only at 100.
Yo, thanks for completing the tutorial, my dude. Yo, join Mech Arena, guys. Link in the description. We're gonna get gifted subs. Thank you. Did I play the video? I played video. Hello?
15 damage, because Battle Mage has a lot of damage.
Yeah.
But with all of this, I'm good to kill normal Lucid, and I'm gonna destroy CPAP. Okay? I'm gonna show us how we're gonna destroy CPAP.
Okay, destroy CPAP. Okay, let me think. My character's around 239, 240, but my boss mules also don't have Abzo, so it's like a bad example. But mine just don't have Abzo because I hate to do the weeklies, so I'm lazy as fuck, so I just don't do it. His boost nodes are at 45. Yeah, that's probably... I think this character's probably comparable with my Lara, but this guy's way more...
I do have nodes that are 43,
way more
45.
stat. How much stat did he have again?
CPAP.
It was like... Yeah, 25. Yeah, my Lara's like 18 or something. Okay, so this is definitely like a size bigger. But he's also a support, so he's got that coming from... But I imagine that he just one-burst nukes CPAP. Probably needs one test in Slime, maybe two. But that's a good level of... I mean, it's a really good high level of power to be at.
And Mana Overload, Battle Mage has some mana problems currently, so I'm not going to use that either. But Maple Goddess Blessing, and I'm going to one burst.
For a short boss fight, you should use Mana Overload, I think, because you'll just nuke it and you don't really have potion cooldown things. But we'll see. The factor of hands is a big thing as well, okay, of course, so we're going to see how well he does.
Right before he gets to his 20% mark, because at that point he turns in.
He's not using guild skills here. That's also important, because I usually use those, because my character's underfunded.
You're going to die a couple of times, it happens, bring your freezers. And just get right back at him. Okay, I'm going to bind because he's almost at the 20%. I'm just going to keep on bursting.
Wouldn't it be better to put the barrier on a rift, so that the rift would be a safe spot? Because the barrier makes it so you don't do damage in rift, right? Yeah, Battle Mage is also getting a lot of nerfs, that's true, but it's still a support as well, so...
So I just wanted to show this because a lot of people are saying, oh, you have to get Absolab, you have to get Absolab, you have to get Absolab. You do not have to get Absolab, okay? With this gear...
That's true, you don't have to. But the opposite is also not true, that it's a waste and that you shouldn't. That's also not true. As in most cases, the truth is somewhere in the middle. Because very apt comparison is like back in the day, everyone said you have to get a Kana farmer. That wasn't true. You don't have to get one. But depending on how you're going to play and whether you want to play efficiently, it would be highly, highly recommended to do so. But there is definitely a small group of people who came into Maple. Everyone told them you have to get a Kana farmer. They played for like 2 days. They didn't like Kana. And they were like, well, I guess I can't play this game because I don't like Kana. I don't want to do that. So that, and people say that I have to. So that means that now I can't, right? That's what you want to talk against without going completely to the other side and saying, no, you shouldn't. Or if you do it, then you're just a meta slave and it's not good or something, right? You just have different situations, different player profiles, different amounts of time you want to allocate to the game. And depending on how quickly you want to progress and where you want to go, different things make sense to different people. This is why I don't like talking about best in slot, because it tries to take away any kind of variance and says there is one true thing that everyone should be striving for, which is also not correct. Best in slot, combination gear best in slot can definitely exist in a game, but for the people that's going to be relevant for is a very, 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 very small percentage of the game. And just because you can't reach the very best in slot doesn't mean that if you get like 9 out of 10 of the pieces of best in slot that you're secondary to best in slot. You might be completely off because set bonuses and stuff might make the composition of gear completely different, right? Therefore, it's better to get a basic understanding of where damage comes from and how pieces interact with each other and the opportunity cost of switching between gear, rather than just this is the one true thing that you should be going for, or this is the thing that you should definitely not be going for. It's typically way more nuanced than that. It comes with opportunity cost, it comes with accessibility, it comes with the amount of time you have available, whether you have a lot of time on a few days, whether you have a little bit of time on many days. You see this coming into play with Sweetwater and all that stuff.
I'm able to get far enough into the game to be killing Lucid and killing Will. I do need a couple more levels to contribute more, maybe level 245.
Yeah, he's getting too much damage reduction on Will. But again, he's mainly a support, so it's not as important for him. As a battle mage, he brings a lot to the table. He's got the big shell, he's got the big debuffs on the boss. That increases the elemental resistance drop, right? Like, he does a lot of lifting, right? He's not quite a Kana, but he's like almost at that level if you add all of that up, especially if you're more in a DPM. So if you're in a DPS party, a Kana will do more. But if you're more in a DPM party, then Battle Mage will rival it, maybe do more, depending on how bad the Kana is and how shitty their level of domain is. Because you're just constantly increasing everybody's damage, right?
Out enough mesos to buy droplets. You can buy a 4-piece arcane set. Okay, that's the shoes. Let's see. That's the shoes, the gloves, the shoulder from Will.
The general theming of like you can keep a few pieces of your gear a little bit weaker if you overcompensate with other stuff is true. But the question is, how much pressure is on you to, to get far into the game and for you. So if you're more of a support, you can definitely get away with a lot more lacking in damage there. But if you're going to be a main damage dealer, you just can't afford to do that, because then the thing is just going to fail, right? You're augmenting other people's damage, but there still needs to be damage there to augment. If that doesn't exist there, the combination is not going to be good enough to be killing the bosses. Now, that's to say, for normal Lucid, he's like overtuned. And if, when you hear people saying like you need like 25 or 26k people for normal Lucid, that's definitely not true. It's actually closer to the hard Lucid requirement for a party than the normal Lucid requirement for a party.
Will Shop gives the shoulder. Okay, your cape also from Lucid Shop. And
unless you want a 3-minute party, of course.
If you ever get enough droplets for your weapon, okay, it's 24, so it's double the price. Listen, this is how I'm going to take myself to the end game right now. I didn't spend any extra mesos on...
Yeah, and meta-wise, we're in a weird position where you could kind of afford the arcane weapons, but you won't really need them to be able to kill. So in the past, you basically had to do normal, earn yourself your weapon, get enough damage to join a hard party, and then 1 in a million chance to get the armors, or just slowly gather enough resources until you had enough to buy all the armors at once, right? And then replace the whole Abzo with the whole armors. So back then you would go past 17 on arcanes, on Abzos typically. You could try like 18, 19, some people went 20 or 21. That would make sense before. But now with all the extra power creep, you definitely don't need to go past 17 on Abzo unless you're going like a full solo approach party, something like that. Sorry, not party, but like solo approach to progress in the game. A different P word. So now there are other options, right? And you get like in the middle where it's like, you can kind of afford the weapon, but you don't really need to buy it yet. It'll be very expensive. You can get into hard parties without it, again, especially as a support. And then what that means is that you can just wait for a box and then get a whole lot of value, right? Because a weapon box seems still decently common, and that's twice the value in terms of droplets and everything of a normal. So it comes down to, do you want to wait for that or do you not want to wait for that? Now, personally, I've never really noticed anyone who has thoroughly... what's the word I'm looking... I'm ESLing super hard right now. Regretted, there you go, there's a word. Regretted getting a weapon. Even if you get a box after that, you just have a backup for star forcing, because it's just such a huge increase in damage. When it comes to the armors though, especially now with the power creep, it's definitely not as important to rush those, because if you do get to afford one, or you do get one box, you can just squeeze them in one at a time, so there's no real rush there to go. But again, for me, there isn't. But for other people, that might be a rush, right? They want to go full purple. That's definitely a big thing.
Absolab. I'm just using Empress and a nice Tyrant Cape with good flames. Okay, this flame 60 and 5, amazing. 24 and 6, okay. 32 and 4, also okay. And shoulder obviously has no flame.
No flame on shoulder.
The reason
Report.
I'm making this video is because you need to stop wasting mesos on Absolab gear. Right? It's a pretty sideways upgrade, and it doesn't even give you enough damage to... Oh shit, let me see if I can...
Yeah, so I don't know if it's heard it from me, but I definitely talk about what I call sideways upgrades a lot. Basically, sideways upgrade is where you can technically get stronger, but it's not worth the money as much. You're not getting enough bang for your buck there. In this situation where he is right now, Abzo is a sideways upgrade. But the problem is that most people, when they are making the choice to go for Abzo, are not in this situation yet. They're 15 levels before this, and they don't have all of this gear yet. So you have two ways to go. You can go for where he's at right now, or you could go for Abzo. The Abzo one is more bang for your buck, but is harder, is trickier. You have to get into Lotus and Damien, you have to do all the weeklies, you have to be willing to do that. The way that he's going is path of lesser resistance. You end up not being as strong, but you're not considerably weaker enough to not be able to do the same content, right? And once you've gone that way, it doesn't make any sense to switch over. Just as if you go that way, it doesn't make any sense to switch over because you'll get a little bit weaker and spend money, right? So from his situation, it definitely would be a sideways upgrade, and I would not advise it, right? If he would come to a progression session and he would say the situation that he's in, I would not advise him to start working on Abzo now. That doesn't make any sense. But if he had a new character that was like level 215 and he wanted to get stronger and he wanted to follow in this character's footsteps, I would say go Abzo because it is easier, it gives you more stats, and it is cheaper, right? So you don't want to confuse that people who are behind you in progressions shouldn't make that step because for you it's not good because they're in a different point, right? That's why all of my progression sessions, a lot of them contradict each other because they're all from a completely different situation trying to move forward. They might have a different amount of time available. They might have different things that they like or don't like and want to avoid. They might have different goals that they want to reach, and they're coming from a different situation that they're currently in. Right? So all of that concluded will make some things sideways upgrades, some things worth it, some things not worth it. But things per definition very rarely are always worth it or never worth it.
Get to Scrapyard. This doesn't give you enough damage to warrant an entire upgrade. Okay, you have to restart force everything. You have to recube everything. Okay, it's just not worth it.
For his situation, yeah.
20 stat and 5 magic attack. That's almost the same as an Empress Glove. 16 stat, 5 magic attack on the Empress Glove. Okay, let's look at the boots here.
I don't know if this reasoning is... If you're going to 17, things are pretty similar. The main difference is going to be set bonus and how much you spend. But again, this is correct for his situation. From his situation, I wouldn't advise to go Abzo, right? Like a lot of my side characters, side mules, whatever you want to call them, kind of like in between bossing mules and bossing content, whatever. That is... a lot of that stuff is... A lot of those characters are overfunded for what they can do, and I would also not go Abzo, but even there I had Tyrant shoes, which are considerably stronger than these Empress shoes, and then I joined a hard Damien somewhere and got a box and got the shoes, and even just with like 17 star and like unique potential and an okay flame, it was already an upgrade to Tyrant, just because I had a fake Absolab weapon from a long time ago, and already the 2 set bonus overpowered Tyrant. So these things are definitely still better, but the question is how much better are they, how expensive is it going to be, and do you need the damage to be able to progress? So in his situation, with his level, with what he already has, him being a support, him already having the access to the bosses he has access to, for him it doesn't make sense. So I wouldn't advise him to do it. But again, someone who is 20 levels lower, who doesn't have access to those things, I would definitely advise to do it, because it's so cheap, so accessible, so much damage, right?
20 and 5. This one's a little bit further off, but it's 15 and 1. Okay? And these are a lot harder to get replacements for if you're star forcing them up to 17. Let's go to the cape. Okay, 15 and 2. The Tyrant cape, right off the bat, beats this out of the water already. Okay? And if I go to Dark World Tree...
Yeah, so again, like Tyrant base stats are really, really good, but if you get all the pieces of Abzo, set bonus definitely overpowers that. Plus you're getting, I think, a little bit of IED and some boss as well, right? That adds up, plus those base stats, even it's like a few attack here, but it's like, 4 attack and 5 stat, but it's on 5 pieces. Well, now you're talking about 25 attack and 20 stat, right? That's already more considerable. Plus it's higher level, so you get more stats from the star forcing. The main thing is going to be the weapon, right? The base stats of the weapon are way higher. It's a higher level, which means the flame gets a higher tier, and or not a higher tier, that's a bad word to use, but like a higher percentage of the base. The base is also higher, and more star forcing up to 17. Like you get way more weapon attack out of it. But again, like if you can do it like this, that's great. You get to save a whole lot of money, because like what I always say in the progression sessions is it makes more sense to make huge leaps in progression, right? That's way more efficient for your money than if you make a lot of small steps. The problem is, if you're starting and you're pretty new, you cannot make those large leaps, because you need to make those small steps to be able to get to the next one, right? Because we could also tell people that the extreme version would be, you don't have to get CRA because, from Kalos you can get a better top and bottom, right? That would be the extreme version of the argument. Because like, well, technically true, but you need the damage from CRA to be able to kill all the steps in between so you can even get to Kalos, right? That would be like the extreme version. In the middle of the game, though, it's a little bit more muddied because things are really close, so I can see how this would be an easier argument to kind of like roll into. But it's important to keep considering that newer players, even though they are in general moving forward and getting more power creep, that does not mean that they can start making those immediate big jumps, right? Even though it would be more efficient, it's mainly something you do on your second character, on your third character, right? When you have a bigger legion, a lot of money, a lot of nodes to fund your account. Because then what happens is you're going to be on the higher end of the numbers here, right? Going to be on the higher end here, which means that in terms of stat or star force, whatever, you can be a little bit on the lower end and you don't have to worry about it there. You can skip some sets if you don't like it. You can skip Sweetwater if that's not your thing. You can skip Absolab if you want to. But on your very first character, it's very, very different, right? Telling new players that it's a waste of money, probably, I think that's just objectively wrong. But to say that this is a possibility, something you can consider, if you have enough damage, definitely a thing. But that's a different argument, right? Shoulders are weird. Because like a royal black metal shoulder can be very good for a long time because of set bonus. Yeah, so just this one, Absolab Spellsong Staff, I think I'm not logged in. I lucked out on my Ice Lightning. My Ice Lightning rolled a tier 7 magic attack, which of course is kind of a bad thing to compare to, I guess. But it has like a fake Absolab. When you already have that, what I have, I'm not going to do anything until I got Arcane, right? Because of everything I have access to, Giant Legion, all the memes, blah, blah, blah. But, like, because of that flame, like, my secondary is 483 attack, but nothing else. But if you compare that to his, this is 376. Of course, you know, it's pretty extreme comparison. But this is also 18 star, so that gives a little bit extra. But it's still 100 magic attack. You know, that's like more than a quarter of his. You know.
So this is where you're gonna lose the most. But remember, because you're keeping the 4 set, you do get 30% boss damage on CRA.
That is true, though.
And just because of that
the extra 30 boss is very useful, especially that early on.
It's at 18 star instead of 17 star. But I'm gonna be keeping this staff until I can get myself an Arcane, and it should be good because
it's basically like getting a free extra line of potential on the Fafnir, right, by holding on to it. But it's coming at a cost, right? You always want to compare. It's not just a pro. It's comparing to something else.
So some stuff I'm working on right now. I just got the Dominator to transpose into the Sweetwater pendant, so this is great. I have 96 and 6. I'm working on Twilight Mark. I'm also going to transpose this onto Sweetwater, and I am doing CPAP so that I can eventually transfer hammer this into the Pat Mark for 15 star, 16 star Pat Mark. So
transposing the Mark onto the Sweetwater is probably going to catch some flack because people are already mad about this video. It's not better than so the best quote unquote would be to just keep the Twilight Mark as it is, and then combine it with the Slime Ring. For the set bonus, that would be like objectively better. The problem is just in flat stats. The problem is how many Twilight Marks do you think you're going to get? Do you think you can upscale better, getting multiple tattoos? And those are way more replaceable, of course, than Twilight Marks. So if you're going for very high Star Force,
Absolab if I was in Reboot.
But still go Absolab if I was in Reboot. If you're starting from nothing, yeah, definitely, it's very good. Thanks for the Prime. Appreciate the 3 months. Congrats on your silver badge. Thank you. It would, in his situation, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to transpose a Twilight Mark. Probably doesn't have access to Chaos Slime in a long time. It's not reasonable to expect it from normal slime. And the drop rate from the marks is decently high enough that you'll probably get one in the future, and that you can then tap to high Star Force to replace this one once you also have a high Star Force ring. It's not a bad idea to do, especially not if you have a giant aversion towards Commercy PQ. A lot of people do though, so for those people, it's like a double gain that you'll just have to wait a little bit longer until you can tap it past 17, right? You'll need backups. But it'll also give you an out to skipping Sweetwater even more. So both situations there, I think, are comparable.
And then also transpose it into the Sweetwater module. Okay, so those are upgrades I can see in the future. Some other upgrades you could do. I can like get 2 better rings. Okay, these are literally drop rings. 9% int, 9% int. I could get something like, I don't know, Connor ring here. Oh, what other rings get there? Connor ring. I could try for like Guardian Angel. In the meantime, I could also replace it with like one of the event rings.
Meister.
Okay, so I have 2 crappy rings.
Event rings are good as well, yeah. Just 2-line stat would be fine. 21.
To be doing a lot of damage in Maple Story. Okay, the big thing is, don't waste your money on Absolab. Okay, do your dailies.
The big thing is, like, don't waste your money. Sure, but that's tautological, right? Because wasting implies that it's not efficient and that you're throwing it away. So that's that lacks like an extra ingredient to it on like when is it a waste. So I would agree that in his situation right now, it is a waste, but most people are not in his situation and will not see that nuance because he did not pronounce that nuance in his statement, because his statement was very direct and absolute and saying that it's always a waste and that a lot of people are wasting and that they shouldn't, right? And that just any spending in it is a waste, right? And I think that's okay to be upset about, I would say.
Please carry you a very long way. Okay,
Or to disagree with. Oh, here we see symbol levels, yeah. So it's 18, 18, 16, 15, 11, 11. I think, is there anyone else in chat at level 140? This is reasonably high, right? Because I think this is a generally decently slow leveler, so you get more days to get your symbols out. So that's also another reason why there isn't as much pressure on the equips and everything. I think it's normal for all the symbols to be like 1 or 2, like 2 levels lower at least. To be like 16, 16, 14, 13, 9, like 10, 9, 10, 8, something like that.
Communicate just from dailies, and use nodes on your main, because obviously the nodes are also going to give you a bunch of damage.
Nodes are very important, of
So if you
course.
want to try this route, it's a little bit rough in the beginning, especially because when people look at your equips, they're like, why is this guy still wearing Empress gear? Okay, like, am I supposed to take this guy into a Lucid party even though he has Empress gear on and a Tyrant cape? Like, absolutely.
This is actually a valid argument against what he's doing. Like, it's going to be rough to get into a party because people are going to be like, I don't see Abzo, this guy must be noob. Some people just probably not even trying to have that conversation and just trying to be like, I have Abzo. Now, I don't like that general thing because that pushes people into trying to get carried on Abzo as soon as possible so that they look strong rather than actually being strong. Which, that's probably another argument to have another time.
So little, right? Everybody stop spending your mesos on Absolab here. If it's a bossing mule, perfectly fine to do Absolab, but I would say if this is your...
If it's a bossing mule, it's fine to do Absolab. I would say if it's a bossing mule, you're even more... okay not doing Absolab, actually, if you don't necessarily want to, because this will be cheaper and will be relatively but also be weaker, but not enough weaker that you can't do the thing. But again, it'll put a lot of pressure on other things like having access to guild skills, needing to work more on arcane symbols than you probably want to, right? So on a bossing mule, I would advise Absolab, but you'd be more okay to not have Abzo on a bossing mule than on a main character, I would say. But again, maybe not if you're a support.
First
Right?
character in your main, the way to go is go for High Flames on Empress gear. Right? They're much easier to replace too, because you can do Cygnus every single week and wear my emblems.
It's easy to get
Almost
backups.
200 of the emblems just for
I would say there is some truth to that, especially because the low drop rate of flames now, you don't want to be wasting your flames on all of your pieces where you don't necessarily need to. So if you can get drops like this, you're essentially getting a free flame. But that also means that until you get a really nice flame that you want to commit to, you're stuck with a very shitty piece in that slot because you'll just have to wait until you get a nice flame until you can start investing into that piece, right? So that's, in the long term, yes, and in short term, it's a little bit of a hit.
Okay, there you go. Stop wasting your mesos, guys.
Yeah, so in general, stop wasting your meso. That's a good message. Don't waste your money. But the question is, when does it arise to the being waste, and when is it not? that's the thing that people will disagree on, and I think that depends on what stage of the game is your account in, and is it what I would consider a sideways upgrade, or is it a straight vertical upgrade, or more vertical of an upgrade? Okay, I think we got through most of that. I think it was pretty much what I expected it to be. No real reason to get bent out of shape. If this was a video, I would say uploaded by like Kobe or something, then I would understand like all of the things around it. Like the fact that this video got 15,000 views in 3 weeks, that part to me is a little bit wild. Because I assume that most of those views are not from people like, oh, this is super helpful. Now I know that I can skip Abzo. I'll never get Abzo in my life. Thank you. But most of it is people being like, oh my God, you're so wrong. I know things so much better than you. And that's what feels a little bit off. Like, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy in that people are so mad that this video is everywhere, but they're the reason why the video is everywhere. That's a little bit the problem. Doesn't take away that the overall message, I think, is not correct, and it could be harmful to new players. But most new players are just jumping into people's backpacks and getting carried anyway, and wouldn't have seen this video if so many people hadn't spread it because they disagreed with it. But that's you could make a small argument that some people might have seen the video and then not have read any of the comments or something, and then not have gotten any of the pushback, and then maybe would have done it. Again, those people wouldn't have had like a horrible experience or unable to play the game, but it would have probably been less than as efficient as it could have been, yeah. So we had a reply, I guess for part 3 of the video. Part 3, we had a reply on the Reddit, I think 2 days ago. Already 10,000 people watched that one. This guy, I saw at the end of the video. This guy, though, is trying to launch his create a career out of it, but not just me, man. But let's see what he has to say about the topic. Much shorter video, so thank you for that. Some viewers may find the following content offending. Oh man, a disclaimer. Is there going to be what is he going to talk about? Oof. Can I even watch this?
This is your warning. I swear like a sailor. I do not apologize for it. I'm Australian. I use the word cunt a
Oh, he's Australian. Okay, no, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, cunt.
lot.
If this is your first character in Reboot, please don't get any Absolab gear.
What?
Okay, Absolab gear is a complete bait.
What the fuck?
Okay, why? Because you can get to endgame without ever touching Lotus or Damien.
But you need to do them.
No, well, that's also wrong. You don't need to do them either. So the fact that you don't have to get them because you can get to endgame without using them, I don't think that's not right. That's too extreme. But then on the other side, that's wrong because you do need it. That's also wrong. You can do it without it. It's just not very efficient. And especially if you're full soloing, it's going to be extremely difficult. But both are wrong here up to this point.
And again, I haven't touched Lotus or Damien because you don't see any of the Lotus and Damien stuff here. Okay, I don't even have the pre-quest completed. See? Unavailable, unavailable. Okay?
Wait, if he's 25k stat, that's so much fucking meso he's missing. Jesus Christ. Okay.
That's true. That's kind of true. I mean, on a weekly basis, you could have made quite a lot of money off of that.
It's going to be quick and simple. Do not listen to this video at all. Do not skip your Absolab gear. It is a key part in progressing your main.
So I wouldn't say don't listen to it. I would say listen to it, identify what you think is wrong with it, vocalize that, and think about that, right? Not just think like, oh, that sounds wrong, and it is most likely wrong, and other people agree that it's wrong, so therefore disengage from it completely and completely let it go. You can do that, but you're going to miss some key points, positive things as well. Helping yourself go through information that isn't necessarily good and walking through the process on why you think it's bad, getting confirmation, doing that process is basically why you're in school, right? You're trying to get from point A to B, from point A to like, I don't know anything, to point B, like I know things and I know that they're true because of good reasons, right? But that's a whole process to go there. And to just be like, oh, you can learn something from positives way more, but you can also learn from like negatives and stuff, right? You can learn from things that are wrong. Try to not completely cast it aside because of that, but try to have a good reason why it's wrong, and not just because everyone disagrees with you, so they must be more right or something, right? Like something that comes down to that, right? And I think he goes into this because I have seen this video. So he goes more into like the numbers and how he replies to things, right? So he's going to substantiate that. But at this point, it's a pretty strong claim.
Yeah. He's ignoring it and trying to prove a point of missing out on so much meso. I don't know why he's trying to do this. He's not pointing this out at all.
Yeah, I hadn't pointed out that point. But you are missing out on quite a lot of money if you don't have Lotus and Damien. Because definitely if you're that strong and you can blow up CPAP that quickly, that means with guild skills, you can definitely kill Lotus and Damien very quickly and you can make a lot of money there. That's just free money just lying around every week. Plus soul shards, for the long term, you can get magnificent souls from Lotus and Damien, which look pretty cool. There's definitely some resources there that you don't have access to. Very true.
What he needs to be aware of is the base stat he receives from the item, as well as the stats received from the set effect, are affected by potentials. This is how much stat he is missing in comparison to 17-star Absolab items.
Comparison 18 C-Ray weapon against 17 Absolab. Yeah, and also going to 18, even though you could get lucky, on average, that rakes up your price of expected cost by a lot, even compared to a higher level item, because just the chance for booms, and just one boom takes your entire like average completely out of whack. This is just the pieces. This is not the set bonuses, right? So he's looking at what? Something like 100 stat, 70, 80, 90, 110 stat, and 30 or something magic attack. What is this? 25 magic attack plus the bonuses. Yeah.
I have 17 stars. I know what he's missing. On top of that, he's also missing the set effect, which is...
Not to be too nitpicky, but I understand why you would keep it unique if it's 3-line stat. But we all know you want that critical damage, right? Yeah, so the set bonus ends up to, is it 30 boss? Yeah, 30 boss and 10 IED, right? Yeah.
As you can see on the screen, this also adds to your base stat before potentials. In total, this is what he's missing completely from his account.
He's totally in for me,
items.
thank you. I had it right, though.
Stats
My maths were on 110 and 24. Yes.
Of an entire 22-star item for free for the sake of saving 15% meso. This is not good practice. Do not ignore Absolab items. You must get them if you wish to progress further. Unless you...
Okay, must is doing a lot of heavy living there. Must can be used as like an imperative, or can be used as a should, or as a I think you must, as in like I would personally advise. This goes into the linguistic thing where a lot of Americans say you should do X, and they mean you should consider, but to me that always sounds like you have to, like it's imperative, like you're a fuck up if you don't, kind of. That's like the connotation I get from that. But must is a little bit more pressing, but like not necessarily. Yeah, if he's going into you have to, you don't have to.
Parties,
but it's
you will
really,
have this
really
set
good.
for a minimum of 6 months if you plan to buy the items with droplet coins. The comment section of this video is fucking wild as well. People...
Yeah, I'm not going... Oh, Ouroboros is always shitposting in my comment section as well, so this is... it's gonna be a rough one. This guy is like in all the comment sections, apparently. But yeah, he's in my comment section as well. He's got some of the tism going on. It's Ouroboros and Stakona. These are the most like tism posters that you have to take with a grain of salt. Anything they're saying, okay, just assume that it's someone with like 0 social skills typing it, and don't try to get like offended by anything in there, and don't try to take it too harshly. The only beta is the video itself. You're 240 and you don't have at least full abs, or you're playing the game wrong. So that's wrong. There's no like right way to play the game. That's way too harsh. Having lucid droplets in your inventory doesn't mean you earned them. It means you got carried out of your mind. That's possible, but he got them through normal, and he has 26k stats, so he's not getting carried. And he's a support, which can run at much lower stats, so that's also wrong. But 211 Adele Mule can 1 burst CPAP because I gave her 2,000 nodes. What's your point here? Well, you can see his nodes, and you can see that he definitely hasn't gotten 2,000 nodes. I don't even skip Abzos when you're a support class because you don't deal direct damage. Okay, so he's mentioning the support part. You just buff people. You also debuff the boss. Okay, also wrong. If you're one of the attackers, you want Abzo set. Again, you don't need to, but it's very highly advised. Yeah, it'll be frowned upon if you don't, because you're just improving the pressure on the rest of the party by not getting it. Because if everyone kind of skips the steps a little bit, then you get a whole party that is not able to kill the bosses. It goes a little bit back to what I was saying, though. If you're doing normal, the current requirements that people put on normal are way too high, though. So definitely people can be weaker, but a lot of people just want fast runs. They want low chance of failure, and they want to be able to do the boss with not as much preparation, so that if you have a shorter run, there's less shit that can go wrong, less likely to die out, even if you don't know the mechanics, etc., right? If you are, feel free to skip CRA and go Pencilier to Arcane. Yeah, so he's talking about a little bit the extreme example that I was talking about. Why even bother with CRA? Some of you should not be allowed to give tips. Again, this is just a random person who made a video of something that he observed, that he thought what people were missing out on, and he wanted to make sure that people didn't make a mistake. I think the intentions were good there, but it ended up being wrong, right? But so instead of just like kicking someone into dirt, I think it would be better to just talk to the person directly, which we're going to do in a little bit, about how can you do it better next time? Like why do you think the things happened the way that they did, right? And how can you improve upon that next time? We'll try to do that.
Turning around and discouraging and discrediting his...
There's no right or wrong way to play the game, stop gatekeeping. I think that's correct. Of course, he's pretty peeved at this point, so that's pretty... harshly put, but I think that's correct. I did earn them, and a Twilight mark. It can seem like a little bit of stat. So increase from Abzo is going to later. So here's underplaying. I don't think it's a little bit. Again, compared to where he is right now, it is not that much, and I probably wouldn't do it. But to get to this point, you probably want to have them in all cases. Sitting 700 mil lions in normal lucid before I even got the Twilight mark with 2. Mezzo, Zakum phase. Again, how much damage you do per line is never really relevant, because some classes do way more lines than others. and unless you play the same class, unless you also play Battle Mage, you don't really know what that means doing 700 mil lines. So that's kind of a weak argument there. It doesn't do as much for you. It's your first Reboot character, no stores. Yeah, yep. I mean, these shitty arguments are very easy to dispel because they aren't good. Most of this conclusion after this is rather correct though. But like these 3 replies are just really bad.
Claims about skipping Absolab gear, and he's turning around trying to fight them. Somebody claims that, you know, this video is bait because he's calling Absolab gear bait, and then says there's no right or wrong way to play this game. Stop gatekeeping it. And he makes a video in response to people saying that you need Absolab gear. Well, hold on, he's trying to gatekeep the fact that no, you don't need Absolab. Stop going for Absolab. It's bait.
Well, I would argue that both are wrong, right? The people saying that you need Absolab gear are wrong, and people say that you don't need it or you shouldn't get it are also wrong. I would, you know, I think there's just many ways lead to Rome, and it's all as long as you have a plan and you know what you're doing and you've got it thought out, then you're good and you can go. So yeah, I think both parties here have like a little bit of wrong in them.
However, don't go against me. You're gatekeeping me as a content creator, whatever you want. He's saying.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that point. Is that both people are gatekeeping. Some people are gatekeeping. You should get it, and some people are gatekeeping. Like, no, you don't have to get it, but like both are gatekeeping. You know.
An obsession with getting Absolab gear, you know, is the reason why people are gatekeeping.
Kind of reminds me of 21 Abso versus 17 Arcane. If those are your options, definitely get 21 or Abso. It's cheaper, it's easier, and it's stronger in the end. You only go for Arcane if you're planning to at least go for 19. Because if you go for 19, that's cheaper and easier than 21 Abso eventually, and that will make more sense eventually. And you'll, right now, you will eventually do that. Even if you think right now that you will never do that, you will eventually go for 19 Arcane. Because you'll get to 17, you'll get a box, and you can just start tapping, and you'll easily get like a few 19s just off of one box because you're having like a universal backup.
Keeping Lucid to 25k stat. Well, no, that's not the case. The reason why it's sitting at 25k stat is that's the average for a 15-minute clear time, if not 20-minute clear time on Lucid. You've got a 30-minute timer, 10 deaths.
Wait, is that true? He's saying that if you have a full party, 25k plus stat, that's a 20-minute clear? Fuck, I wonder if that's true because people early game spend their money wrong and spend all of it on potential. Meaning that they're like inflated on stat and completely deflated on arcane power. Well, the stat goes into that, but like deflated on nodes and on weapon attack because of low star force. And on shitty gear because they're carried and everything. I think this is because people have like 12-star Absolab gear with 2-line legendary potential that they need to go higher in stat because their stat is inflated compared to their other stats because they were spending their money wrong. I think it's only true. You solo normal Lucid at 19-20k on a Paladin right now. A 20-minute for a full party, if people are 25k stat, I think is only possible if people spend their money completely wrong. Then it could be correct. But otherwise, that sounds wrong. That sounds like it should be a 10 to maybe like 12-minute run at most. But again, you could have a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing, dying to literally everything, right? That takes a lot of... If your hands are horrible, that takes a lot of damage away, of course. So, yeah. But again, like if you... So when I hear 25k stat, I think 25k stat and then go down the line here, right? That should not be required for normal Lucid. But if you're 25k stat and everything else is like early, like beginning, mid-game stage, then yeah, okay. But this goes back into like why we don't have really one big number that you can look at on how good is everything, and that you can't really look at your damage range. You can't look at just your stat, and the lower your stat is, the less reliable of a metric it is, right, to predict how strong someone is. Especially if someone got carried through all of the bosses, right? And this goes back into why just getting carried through the entire game is just so silly. If you're getting carried through all of the bosses, including like Lotus and Damien, you never had to like earn something for yourself, and never had to put in the work looking at mechanics, responding to attacks, reaction time, etc., etc. And the first boss you ever do is normal Lucid. Yeah, you're gonna have to be overtuned to survive the boss fight because you've got no basics, you've got no fundamentals, right? So you're gonna be dying more quickly needlessly to stupid situations. That's gonna happen. So you're gonna have to overtune your character to compensate for the lack of hands. Yeah.
why would you try and gatekeep to the point, well, no, you should have a 30-minute boss run. The reason why 25k is the average is because that's what's called a struggle party. That's what Reboot is based off. If you're not in a guild and you're not in a group that can go to Lucid regularly, 25k stat in the pickup group guarantees pretty much that yes, you will contribute, you will pull your weight. His 25k stat saying the reason why it's being gatekeeped at 25k stat is half the reason people are saying no, you need Abso.
Get kept.
This isn't true. And in some comments, he's flat out lying as well. Somebody points out that it'll be faster to get 17-star 2 or 3 line Absolab gear, and he turns around and says he got his arcane gloves a week after the video. Well, that's great. Congrats.
I feel like it would be faster, just 17-star 2-3 line Abso, and so you can contribute to harder drops and if just yeah, that's true. Like if you're starting from the same position, one person goes to Abso, the other person goes to like copy the situation that that Andough is in, then yeah, it should be cheaper, faster, and stronger in the end. That's correct.
Congratulations, that's 12 droplets. In this video, you had 10, then you turn around and say that you're close to having a shoulder and chewing droplets again. Well, sorry, if you have a decent drop rate, the max you can get is 5 droplets from a hard party anyway. So I don't know how you've magically pulled 24 droplets out of your ass, but hey, keep trying to gaslight other players. The final thing I find funny about this video is he turns around in the comments saying, you don't want to get carried with the rules.
He's getting a little bit mad, but
fun everything. You need to be able to do it by yourself, that sort of thing. But one of the most oblivious things is he fails.
I think it was exactly relish in spending 6 hours in this game for pre-quest and then more time doing. I think you overvalue the loss of time for the pre-quest, because pre-quest, if you look at them by themselves, and even if it is 6 hours, that sounds like that's a lot. It is a decent chunk of time, but it is a small investment for how much you're going to get back from that. All of your characters are going to be able to do Lotus and Damien immediately. You're going to be making like more than 300 mil a week back, right? Just from the 2 crystals. It is 100,000 million billion % worth that investment of time. If you're purely looking at it like, okay, that's 6 hours now, or I could do 6 hours of training right now, that's always going to feel like a waste. But if you look at it, that's 6 hours now, and it's like a lifetime of gains back afterwards. There's like a better way of looking at that time investment. 6 hour time investment worth. I should definitely write that part down. It's not hard getting Abso gear when you can trade carry or ask someone to carry you. Yeah, but I'm sorry, but if you're going to play a game and your whole strategy to get through the game is having someone else play it for you, for me personally, I don't understand what you're even doing in that game, because you're just not enjoying the progression of the game, or you're not enjoying the contents of the game, which is fine if you don't enjoy it. But why torment yourself in needing to stay in the game and progress in the game, investing in the game, which makes it even harder to quit in the end, when you're just not really feeling it. You're not really okay with the requirements that the game is putting on you to be able to progress. That's okay if you're not okay with that. You can play another game. I could never imagine going to a game and the first thing you do is like, hey, play it for me. But that's just me, I'm just different at that. For me, the whole purpose of a game is enjoying it, having fun, and exploring and figuring stuff out for myself and failing and then learning from my mistakes. Like, that's video game to me. But a lot of people, yeah, they just want to speed run it, right? They just want to get to the finish line, save the princess, whatever, see the big numbers, and then that's the purpose of the game for them. And people can play games for different things, but it doesn't mean I have to agree or try to be okay with that, right?
To mention that you got carried through Superior set, because it takes 80 to 110 days of daily running and daily clearing Helix to get a full set Superior. Of course, each time you get an item drop, that's...
Oh, you say 80? What did I put? Oh, I just put 4 set Gollux. 80 to 100? Wait, I thought it was... Oh, it depends on drop rate, right? Oh, no, yeah, I put 8 weeks... 80 to 100? Isn't it like 25 coins? That 80 is 2,000 then, right? Don't you only need 1,400? Yeah, I'm taking the low amount is 25. So then in 8 weeks... 25 to 30, so on the low end per week you'll get 175. How much is 175? 175. 5 times 8 is 1400. Yeah, exactly. Right? So on the lower end, it's 8 weeks. So, oh yeah, but that's if you get both of the drops. So 8 weeks plus. But he's saying 80 to 110. Is that really the average? Is the drop rate that bad that you, on average, only get a drop every 40 to 50 runs? Every month and a half? I thought it was closer to every month. I don't know. Maybe he's calculating extra coins to buy one extra if you don't get the drop. Yeah, that's possible.
It's 20 days lessened. Apologies, that's 20 days of 35 coins and 40 days of 20.
He says 25 to 35. I don't know if it goes that high. I never get this many coins. If this is how high you should be possibly getting, I'm getting stiffed on my Helix coins, bro. Item drops. Yeah, I think on average people get at least one drop within the first 1400, right? Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get any coins. I was going for 1800 because I wanted the reinforced as well. And then I got 0 drops until I was at like 1700 coins. And then by the time I got to 1800 on the last 3 runs, I got earring belt. So I ended up with a belt spare actually. But I was very close to getting nothing, but I ended up getting 3. So I imagine for most people it's kind of like that, where either they get 1 in the beginning and then they don't get anything anymore, or they get 1 near the end. Or fastest time possible is 40 to 56 days. Okay, so this is like a low estimate then, I guess, with his math. I'm just going to assume that he's done by the math. So we'll do like 10 weeks plus then at least, right? So it's more like 70 days. Okay, I'll adjust that a little bit.
25 coins.
We did, however, I'm trying to keep my information up to date as well. See some information that the drop rate for does in fact impact the Helix drops, which I saw data for. So we have changed that information. So again, but this kind of more plays into trying to get exchange carries or trying to get carries rather than trying to solo it, right?
Sorry, 30 days of 25 coins. I can't math. But he won't tell players this, but instead will tell them in the comments, no, you shouldn't be aiming to get carried with everything. I got carried. You need this set that I got carried for. He'll claim that he done it himself, but no, there's a little bit of math there. You're only 25k.
So not necessarily true that he got carried, because if you look at his arcane symbols, you can see that they are leveled quite far, and he is doing a more slow approach to the game, where he is not mass leveling, but he is playing more like a little bit of time on a lot of days rather than a lot of time on a lot of days or on fewer days. So it is possible that he did all the runs himself, but he's just progressed very slowly while doing that. You cannot necessarily draw the conclusion that he got carried. It's possible. It's likely that at least he joined some runs that were announced, but it's not necessarily so. So I think that's a bad conclusion that he's drawing.
Stat, that means you've been 25k stat for how long? You haven't really progressed. So what's going on here?
Well, he's playing casually, which again is allowed, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you should give advice to everyone else based on your situation of playing casually, because most people in this game, especially the people who are actively looking for advice on how to progress, are not playing casually. So you should have differentiated. So that's the answer to the question he's posing here rhetorically as like a rhetorical win, but it actually has an answer and has something to engage with.
And all the video itself is nothing short of just misinformation. His comments are him throwing a tantrum about people, pointing out his flaws. He'll backtrack on some things and he's flat out lying with others. It's all there, and if you do a little...
Yeah, I've not gone into the comments because I think then this whole thing will get way too long. But at least from the ones that he showed here, which I assume that he's probably shown that AllWillFreeze has shown probably the ones that were the worst for him, right? Because why would you pick ones where he doesn't look that bad if your argument is he looks really bad? From those, I will say that he's definitely coming across pretty aggressive. I imagine someone with like small amount of subscribers, one of the first videos that actually gets a lot of views, people giving you a lot of hate, a lot of pushback. You're trying to feel a little bit defensive. Not necessarily a good reaction, but it's an understandable reaction. Definitely some things there like doubling down that we saw that probably didn't need to. But I feel the same thing. Like I wrote a whole thing here as well in the moment itself when people were sending me the video and were saying that a lot of people in other people's community were like saying like, hey, this guy's in Scardor Guild, like Scardor's giving everyone bad information. Look. I tried to like let that. I wrote a whole bunch of like, reply to that specifically, but then like looking back at it a day later, 2 days later, I let that all go. It's like, that's not very productive. Let's look at the information that's here. Let's look at how we can engage with that and how can we do better in the future. Let's just try to stay productive and not like, fling shit around at people. unless you truly believe that it was all a ploy to get those clicks. But then I guess the production value could have been improved.
A bit of math, and you actually look into what can and can't drop from a boss, you'll quickly find that nothing's really matching up. And anyone that's actually played the game and understands the mechanics, understands the drops, and understands how to progress is quite literally lying to players. So I highly recommend to just ignore the video. It's already sitting at 500 plus dislikes, or more, close to 500. And, he's just constantly backpedaling in comments. Just ignore it. Do not listen to it. Do not follow its advice. Just...
So I wouldn't advise to ignore it. I would advise to look at try to understand, right? Try to understand where the information is coming from and how he got to that conclusion, and try to understand why it's wrong. Because if you can understand that, you can apply that as well to other things you hear in the future and be, I understand. And this goes all the way back to one of the first things I mentioned, is when people come into my chat, sometimes they'll say, hey, Matt said this about Arcane or something. I'm just giving you a wild example. Like, oh, Matt said, like, don't get your Arcanes past, don't get your Arcane weapon past 19 stars or something. And it's like, okay. And why did he say that? It's like, oh, I don't know. He just said that. It's like, okay. So why do you think he said that? It's like, well, I don't know. Okay. Well, why didn't you ask him? Because he's the one who said it, right? Wouldn't you want his reasoning on why he said that? I can make an assumption. I can make the assumption and say, well, you're most likely not going to get a lot of backups. The return on investment past 19 stars is pretty low. You're probably going to be working towards Black Mage and working on your Genesis weapon. So there's a small gauge already for gains in between there. And that money is probably better spent in other places than on a weapon that's where it's highly risky. Plus, if you boom it, you might completely ruin your character for a while. You might have to sell it back to 17. Like it's high risk and pretty low reward, right? I can give that explanation. But why am I supposed to give that explanation when someone else came with that information first, right? Go to the source. Ask the source on why they believe that. Because once you really get down to why they believe that, and you can really suss out where it's coming from, now you have a very good, valid reason to attack them on it, right? Because now you can understand, like, oh, you're just completely wrong. Or, oh, you misinterpreted this thing. And you can maybe even help them get better information in the future. And this goes back to like my main critique that I have with, I hear a lot about people disagreeing with my stuff sometimes or thinking I give bad information. A lot of times it feels like people just want to be upset. They just want to disagree. They just want to be angry at something. Rather than we want people to have good information. So let's make it so that everyone can spread better information and has all the facts so that we can make it better for everyone. But that doesn't seem to be the goal. The goal seems to be, how can we just stay upset at something? And you can do that if you want to. I just don't think that's very productive. So I won't do that, and I'll try to not do that. And I'll invite all of us to try to do that less. And then we go into the promo, I think.
Read up on what you're going to do. It's very simple to progress in this game. Just don't follow this video of flat-out lies. Anyways, my name is Freeze. I stream infrequently on Twitch. I mainly stream MapleStory. Come check me out. Call me a nugget. Everything will be PG. Peace.
Nice. But because this is the guy who got accused of trying to launch his career off of controversy, and then
obviously,
well, this is the that's the guy. I just thought that was a nice irony. Okay, so we've written a bunch of things down. We've talked a lot about how we're going to talk about things or where we can get the information. I have been completely ignoring my chat. We'll probably conclusion. Chat. We'll do chat questions here. Okay, chat questions conclusion. That'll be part 5. Okay, now it is time for part 4. Part 4. Hello. Let's hope he's still alive. Hello.
Hey, Scardor. How you doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I'm watching the stream right now, and I think there's a lot of reasonable stuff that was said there.
How's well, before all that, how's life in the temporary spotlight?
Temporary spotlight. I'm not seeing it because nobody knows who I am still.
Okay,
but,
that's good. That's good.
life is good. I have a full-time job. I'm in school.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the casual gameplay comes from. But everything's good. Yeah.
Yeah. But how do you feel like the reception was, and like the videos and the comment section? Because as much as you'd like to not pay too much attention to it, you can't really ignore, right?
Yeah, so I actually did ignore it for quite some time.
Hmm.
But yeah, I wasn't expecting to get so many negative comments about it. I really thought I would just post this video and people were like, "Oh, that's cool, you know, some guy can get from Empress gear to Arcane Umbra gear, and you know, that's cool."
Hmm.
And that's about it. But then, you know, that wasn't the case.
So do you understand where the well, I mean, I would agree with you that the amount of vitriol is highly unnecessary. But do you understand where the major disagreements come from?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah,
how,
I'm
how would
getting a
you
lot of
how would you vocalize that? What do you think is like the best, like the steelman version of the argument of people disagreeing with you?
um I would say that for the most part, it is better to actually go for the Absolab. You know, I looked at all of the calculations that freeze guy would do, you know, just looking back at everything over here.
Hmm.
Um, and knowing that I actually came from a pretty privileged position because I came from regular server with a bunch of knowledge on how to do the bosses.
Right.
Um, yeah, I
And
do think
and
Absolab
and
is the way
like
to go.
which jumps you can make in equipment that are maybe completely necessary, right? You can cut some
Right,
corners. Yeah.
right. Yeah, but no, I do think my advice is wrong for a new player to skip Absolab. I think, especially the time that you're talking about, what is a sideways upgrade and what isn't a sideways upgrade.
Hmm.
You know, people in their 220s, 230s are deciding, do I go 17-star Empress or do I do Absolab? And, you know,
Hmm.
I would say do the Absolab. It's so much better.
Yeah. Yeah, and the purpose of the character and the current situation of the character is the key there, right? Like if you're already in your situation, I would never advise make the jump to Absolab now, especially because you're not going to go past 17. It's going to be a huge investment, and you're already so close to switching into Arcane. In your situation, makes perfect sense. But again, like you said, like if it's 10, 15 levels before you, yeah, it's a no brainer to go for Abso. It's just so much. It's so much free shit, right? The set bonus is so good. The base stats are so good. Um, and I think, yeah, because I think the biggest part was just the fact that you said like it's a waste and like don't go for it, and that got everyone like riled up. And a lot of it, some of it is probably just meta, right? And people are like, well, they don't want to hear that being wrong because then that means what they did was wrong. That's definitely
Hmm.
part of like the emotional response that you got.
Yes.
um, but it's still factually correct, so it's like harder to attack that. People feel like you're like obfuscating because you're trying to make it more like about the meta conversation rather than the actual facts in the video. Um,
Yeah,
so, so
no,
what
for sure.
so what made you kind of like see that? Was it like the maths in the second video, or was it the comments, or I don't know if it was on
Yeah, so
Reddit.
AllWillFreeze had actually left a comment for me in my video, and I
Mm-hmm.
read through it. He had all the calculations already done there, so it's pretty simple for him to make that video on it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
you know, I read through it. I read through a bunch of other comments, and I realized, yeah, like I think what I got wrong here is mainly the timeline. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely the timeline. And I also had high expectations. It's like, oh, you know, I think it would be fun for new players to just struggle through bosses. And, you know, for me, that's super fun. I did that all through regular server, and I'm doing that here in Reboot.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, for other players, they just want to get into the boss, blow it up in 7 minutes, and be out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if what he said about the 20-minute, like if you're 25k plus for the whole party, then it's a 20-minute clear. That sounds
That is
wrong.
not true. That
Um,
is not true.
but the only way I can see that being maybe like remotely true is that if everyone's mechanics are just horrible because they got carried on their way there,
Hmm.
and if everyone is getting all of their stat just purely from potential, but their star force is horribly low and they have no legion, right? Because then you have to
Yeah.
overcompensate terribly. Then I can see
Yeah.
that if you put those two together, and maybe people have like horrible IED, for example, right? And they just don't know where the damage comes from, then I can kind of see that. Um, but yeah, like if you have representative stat, right? Like if the 24k is representative for where you're in the game, then that should be, I think, should always be a sub 10-minute clear.
No, for sure. Because I actually made a 22K minimum lucid party the other day, and we finished in less than 10 minutes, probably like 9 minutes
Mm-hmm.
or so. But it was 22K. There's no way that's taking 20 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and so I guess my main argument was like people saying that you definitely need it is wrong, right? Because you can do it without it. Like that part of your argument I think is correct. But then you saying you don't need to and it's actually better not to and you shouldn't, I think that part is wrong as well because it just depends on which path you're taking and how you want to progress through the game, right? So one of the major things I wrote down here is like you're talking about like the Monster Park badge, getting the Golix set and everything. That's definitely stuff that compensates. But if you look at how much time this takes versus how long do you think the average new player takes to get to from just starting out to getting to full Absolab? Because they're probably going to get carried in like most of this stuff, right?
Yeah, if they get carried, I could say like 2-3 months. If they look for that guild early on and they ask for the carries and everything, I could say 2-3 months full Abso set. At the same time, that's also where you're going to get your Golix set. You know, if you ask for carries every single day, 3 or 4 months should be good for the full Golix set.
So you're getting that Golix like after the full Abso, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why what you use that as an argument as to like why you could or like where you could get the damage from and why you shouldn't or don't have to, and then they were like, well, how? You know, that timeline doesn't make any sense.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
That timeline doesn't make any sense. But so one thing that a lot of people didn't talk about, I would say, is that the fact that the position that I'm in with that character is actually not detrimental at all because I could transfer up everything to Absolab if I wanted to. Right? And so, I don't know, that is just something that's very easily glossed over. You know, if somebody had been in my position and they're just like, hey, I don't have enough damage, you know, I want to train a little bit faster. I'm not one-shotting when I'm mobbing and stuff like that. I think very easily they probably are going to get those carries in Lomian. They'll have the coins, do a couple weeklies, and they can just transfer it up to Absolab.
Well, in your situation, they wouldn't have to get carries. They could solo it, right? With how quickly you blow up CPAP, like if you do the pre-quest, you blow it up easily. And then I would do that, yeah. I would transfer it over, especially like the glove and the shoe. Cape is a little bit of a up in the air, right? Because the tyrant base stats are so high and because Arcane is so close. But yeah, for glove and shoe, you can very easily just transfer into it, and even just the 2-set bonus will already be a nice plus.
For sure.
Yeah, that's something I didn't mention. The other thing I think it was mentioned at least in Ouroboros' character is his comment. Apart from the rest of his comment being pretty bullshit, but that's just I have him in my comment section a lot. Is the fact that you're a support character, right? There's definitely less pressure on you being a support character for needing to really provide that top damage. A lot of your damage and your value comes from doing the right thing at the right time, your positioning, keeping the boss debuffed, that kind of stuff. So it is easier for you to cut some corners. So if you already know, how you go through the game because of prior knowledge, you have access to like great content creators giving you a lot of information. You have access to being a support and not having that pressure on you. It allows you to cut a lot more corners without negative consequences, right? Because you kind of touched on that. You said some people will look at you funny because they see you have no Abzu gear and you kind of have to justify yourself. But if you're a support, people could be like, okay, but you can still do your supportive capabilities, right? It's not like you're a bishop and you need a lot of stat. You just have to do the right things at the right time. Whereas if you're going to be a DPSer and it's like, well, now, now if you don't have that, now there's no damage to be magnified by our support in our party. So now it could be like, we'll just keep looking for someone else, right? And with people already feeling like they're progressing slowly and it's tough to get into parties, adding that extra difficulty onto it doesn't seem like, for most people, it'd be a good idea.
Right, for sure. And I have one small thing to say about this. This, of course, doesn't go against the fact that I am a support character and I get like some privilege for being underleveled at will, especially. And it's because when I was in regular server, I actually did see like full 25 to 30 minute struggle lucid runs, and basically like a non-hurricane class, the highest damage in the entire party was doing like 300 mil lines. And that's why I say, like me being able to deal 700 mil lines on normal lucid is a main contributor of damage.
Yeah, you could do BAs and see where everyone's at. I'm just saying, for me as well, if you say do 700 mil lines on lucid, I don't know what the fuck that means. Like, because I don't main a battle mage, so I don't know what that is. Is that great? Is that bad? Some people have certain damage skins. You can't even see how much you hit.
Yeah, that's like prior knowledge that I didn't put into the video, but it is the fact that like if your maximum damage person is doing 300 mil lines, that's about like a 25 to 30 minute struggle run that I've watched before. So doing 700 mil lines, that's like a 15-minute clear if everybody does 700 mil lines and there's no support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's just knowledge that I didn't put out there. It's knowledge that I have, but I should have included it. But yeah, no, my battle mage, it is a support and it's a main contributor in damage to normal lucid.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would assume so with your damage and with your stats surrounding it. Plus, I assume you have hands, so that means you can put the stat actually to work. If everyone in the party is where you're at and you have a full party, I imagine for normal lucid it's like a 5-minute clear, especially if you include stuff like guild skills and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right, we do have that third guild skill here too, so I'm privileged in that.
Yeah. Missing the point of classes doing a lot of lines versus low lines. Well, yeah, that's why I was saying, right, that the individual number, even if you play the class, but if you play a different class, it doesn't say anything, right? Because somebody could be doing billion lines, like a marksman could be doing 2 billion lines, but it's like the slowest attack speed of anything in the game, right? So their numbers need to be higher to be able to carry their own weight, versus some other characters who are just attacking, maybe like a Corsair or something, probably does like 1 million lines with all the summons and everything, so the individual lines are going to be low. This is why some old things like looking at the damage per line, looking at your damage range, looking at one-shotting. That's why these things, I kind of want to completely get rid of them, because they're just not of this decade anymore. These are just like remnants of old MapleStory where those things really mattered. But now they're pretty much insignificant in the larger scheme of things. It just doesn't really matter.
For sure.
And,
especially like the 150 build damage cap, and then like some skills are lower in lines now and some skills are higher in line.
Yeah, I mean, for damage range, just like standing clean in a map versus being in a boss fight could be 10x your range, maybe even more than that, right? Could be like 15x your range with final damage. Again, your stat, the lower your stat is, the less representative it is of how strong you actually are, right? If you're 10k stat, for some people that means that you can maybe do normal Cygnus, you know? And for other people that means that you can comfortably do Lotus or Damien if you have all of the metrics around it, right? It can be a huge leap for some people.
Yeah, and that was actually a big talking point for a lot of the comments. They said like, oh, this guy probably has like 8k Legion and stuff like that. You know, I think they missed the fact that I opened my character window and it showed 3k Legion in there.
Yeah, it didn't used to, so I guess people aren't used to looking for that. But yeah, again, I would read that as like, I would say that's like a bad way to say it, and fuck those people. But I would hear that as, well, this is what they're trying to get at. You know, seal mining their argument is that you probably have other ways of being able to compensate for that loss of damage in a way that doesn't make it as necessary for you as it would make for someone else. That's like, it's a good thing to try to hear that, even though I do definitely blame people for just like not being able to vocalize themselves properly, and then just it's your point to like, it's like your fault to figure out what they actually meant. I don't think that's great either.
Right, for sure.
But
yeah, I didn't make that clear at all in the video.
So what have we learned?
What have we learned? Try not to use such offensive wording, such extreme wording in the video.
Well, you could, right? But you've got to have the facts, right? You've got to have
the evidence to back it up.
Exactly, yeah. I think that was what the main problem was. Like, you had a bold statement, but you weren't able to back it up, and then the other guy was, and then it's like, boom, you know.
Yeah, and I was making that video at like 2 a.m. So you know, who knows what was going on in my head at that point. But yeah, it wasn't a very well thought out video. You know, I'm not trying to be a content creator with that and like put it somewhere on YouTube, right? No, yeah, I think that's about it. You know, Absolab, worth it. Please go for it. Okay. If you want to try the Empress stuff, try it out. Who knows? Maybe you'll enjoy it. But
yeah, I think it's it's a great step up gear, I think, before you get the Abso. But like you said, you basically just keep it epic, decent flame, some Star Force on it. Maybe like, you know, during a 30% off, you can tap it because flames are so in such short supply. So why would you give away like the possibility of an eternal flame roll from that boss, right? And then, like you said, like you just transfer hammer upwards later as you're moving into the Abso anyway, and you can maintain a lot of the value. So I think it's a nice step in the progression, but it's definitely not one that precludes the other one to be done.
Right, for sure.
Are you going to someone asked, are you going to delist the video?
I'm definitely thinking about changing the title for it. I'm probably not going to delist it though. Are there any suggestions for a better title on the video?
Yeah, because that's that's a good point, right? What would you want to do? So with everything you've told me, I feel like you agree with most or not all the things that I've said. You feel like people were a little bit too aggressive, but you understand why because of how you phrase things.
Mm-hmm.
So because I think even if you change the title, what's still going to change is the general comments and the general feedback. So I would probably change the title, yes, to something a little bit less inflammatory. So I would be thinking of something like an alternate, how to. So something like what to upgrade if you're not going for Abso, for example. Because I was feeling like a little bit of pressure like on my side as well. I was like, well, because I just don't like going for Abso, so I don't do that. So I hope I'm not giving off the vibe that I think it's bad or that people shouldn't do it, right? Because people were kind of blaming me for saying that, even though I've never said that a day in my life, of course.
Yeah.
But the second
And I
thing I would
apologize for
do, whatever title you choose, I think what's almost more important is that you add like a pinned comment for yourself. Just saying like, I've looked at a lot of feedback based on this video, and I've come to understand, basically what we were talking about now is that for a new player and for beginning players, it definitely makes a lot of sense to go for Absolab, and is definitely stronger than what I'm going for here, and that you were kind of like, overzealous in the way that you were presenting it as like the be-all end-all solution, but you see now that what you're actually trying to represent was more an alternative, and that you hope that people can see it as an alternative and not as a full replacement, or like something that's necessarily better than Abso, but that you decide to keep the video up because it was like a learning experience or something like that, or because you don't want to lose like the ad revenue on the video, right? Because that's always nice.
I don't even know how to get the ad revenue, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you have to get a certain amount of subscribers. I think they changed like a certain amount of monthly views and a certain amount of subscribers, I think, before you can start getting ad revenue on your videos. That took a while for me to build up as well. So, but some combination of that, like you don't want to hide it because it was there and it's something that you'll learn from, and what your conclusion was after the video, basically on, the timeline and like the positioning of the gear rather than how you're talking about it. I think that's more important than whether you change the title or not. But I would probably also change the title because one of the main arguments and feedback from people was that it was too inflammatory and that you were like trying to do it to like clickbait people, right?
Right. Yeah, so I'll definitely change the title, and I'll think of a comment to put on pinned comment to put on that video.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 'cause I don't want to hide that stuff. I think it's like interesting discussion for some of them.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, some of them are probably not very useful discussion, because there are still YouTube comment sections after all. It's only one step above Reddit comment sections, and not in all cases even.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely a step forward that I'm gonna take, and if I ever do release another video, I'll think about it more. Have a better plan for it, and everything like that.
Yeah, one good idea could be, depending on who you're making content for, it's always a good idea to kind of like write an outline. Mine is a little bit too prepared here, but if you're planning to not be on screen, you can definitely just write out like the whole thing that you're gonna say and just reread it and read through it a few more times. And if you're making content for very new beginners, what you could do is just let somebody who's pretty new read it and ask, like, does this make sense at all? Like, do you even understand what's going on here? Because if they say, like, you're using a bunch of terms I don't even know, right? Then that might be a bad idea, and then you might have to explain some concepts first before, like, lay some groundwork, right, before you get into it. If you're trying to talk to more like in the middle of the pack people, you can just throw it in like a class Discord, or it's like specific for a class, right? You can be like, hey, you guys play this class. Does this advice make sense? Would you guys agree with this, or would you guys reword this? Right? Just letting one or two other people read it beforehand, especially if you're not like it's your brand and you don't want you're not you're not involved with like people like stealing your ideas or stuff like that. That's not even something on your mind. Then it could be a good idea to just let somebody read it and just kind of give you some feedback. And it might be, in best case, you don't have to change anything. You can just upload it, and in even better case, you can make it a little bit better.
Yeah, sounds good. I got a couple friends who were trying to maybe get into MapleStory, so I could have them read it over, see like, do you know what the heck is going on here, stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, so that's probably what I would do. I'd like to go through some questions that chat might still have. I don't know if you have time to sit around for that a little bit longer, or if you have to go.
I could sit around for a little bit longer. Yeah.
Okay. So people in the chat, I see we have some extra people, so we probably have some people from outside as well who have some comments. Given everything that I've said and things that I think your name is Andy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that Andy has said. What are some things that you feel are still unresolved or that you want to ask? Because I feel like I was pretty thorough, but two always know more than one, right? That's why you let someone else read the video.
Yeah.
To be fair, I don't really do that very often, but that's because I just want to get the video out there, because usually by the time I get to making a video, it should have already been out there for a month, so I don't want to postpone it even more.
Yeah, I get it.
But that's just bad planning on my end. Okay, no questions. Wow, we did so great. Andy, we crushed it, dude. Chat has 0 questions, 220 people almost, and everyone's that made sense.
Yeah, it just makes sense.
We love you, Andy. I got one. All right, Bishan. I mostly covered it. Well, yeah, I mean, I'd like to think so, but there's always something that I haven't covered yet, or there's always something that someone disagrees with me. So now's the time to speak up. Like, he's here now. You could talk to him directly, right? Because the comment section, in a sense, is like a way to contact relatively directly. But what I'm always missing is I'm live streaming. I'm as much available as any human can be, I think, through Discord. Like, I comment on everything, I reply to everything, and I still feel like a lot of people are talking about me rather than just at me and be like, well, like, how can we solve this? How can we move forward, right? Like, how can we do that? Did you solo or party for stuff? I assume you kind of struggled and soloed what you could because of your prior knowledge from non-reboot?
Yeah, so I think the big one is Helix. I was doing hard Helix for a little bit. And then I think once I hit maybe 16, 17K, and again, this whole new account, so 16, 17K stat on a whole new account, I decided to try Helix, and I did it, and I just started doing Helix from there every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else did I solo? I soloed all the basic weekly bosses, because, obviously prior knowledge makes those super easy. Never did I get carried for hard lucid, and I actually just made like a kind of slightly toxic parody video on that, but I didn't get carried for hard lucid. I did all normal lucid runs. And I did get one hard will carry, but the rest are normal wills.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think I saw another question. They're asking if I needed graphics. No, I don't. I have a full-time job. Thank you, though.
Will that be the talk of the town if I make a video about these cataclysmic activities? Maybe, dude. How would you go about an efficient route of obtaining Empress gear over Abso gear?
What I did is I started out with Necromancer gear with good flames, because obviously you're killing Hilla every single day for mesos as in your new account. Those can get pretty good flames. Then I upgraded to Von Leon set, and then I upgraded that to Empress set. So I actually stuck onto some 16-star Von Leon gear for quite a while until I got good flames on Empress gear.
Yeah, just one step up, one step up. Oh, I guess that's the other question about the carried was more like how do you explain, I guess, the maths that Freeze said like at the end there with the amount of clears and you claiming that you were like really close to multiple pieces arcane. I guess that's maybe something that's gonna feel a little bit weird.
Yeah. If I look on my account right now, I got 9 will droplets, okay, and that is because I did get that one hard will carry. So that's 2 weeks away from a shoulder. In my opinion, that's close. I also do have 6 lucid droplets in my inventory, so that's at 6 to 3 weeks away. And again, because I'm a casual player, in my opinion, that's close.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's just a definition of what close means versus, because some people mean like that means the day after tomorrow you can get it, and for you could be like that's less than a month away, so that's pretty close.
Right. And then for some people, like a week is a long time.
Yeah, and again, this comes back down to a lot of people. I think like that's literally why it's the Zoomer generation, right? I don't know if you're just like mentally older or you're like a little bit older than the average gamer now, but a lot of people just want to speedrun their shit.
No, I'm definitely slightly older generation, mentally very old.
Just an old fuck. You're like late 20s or like early 30s?
Mid-20s. Not even
yeah.
late 20s yet.
Okay. Must feel weird that a lot of people your age is probably hard to. If on such a fundamental level, they prioritize such different things, right?
For sure.
So you always feel like the old fuck, even if you're around people your age.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I am an old fuck, kind of,
Yeah.
because I have to sleep 8 days.
Oh yeah. I always had that too. Bad sleep is a bad day. Oof.
Oh yeah, so I'm seeing like some questions about the flames. I actually lucked into the 80 and 6 Dominator, and I lucked into my 60 and 6 Twilight Mark. They
Well,
both dropped as
they dropped.
is.
Yeah.
Yes, 80 and 6 flame and 60 and 6 flame on the Twilight.
Yeah, so we
So I
because we
did
looked
not
at the
spend that
calculator,
90.
right? Like an 80 and 6 on a pendant is 191 bill average cost. So I mean, again, like I could see the nuance, and I could be like, that's just one of the pieces of the puzzle. But if someone is like, okay, this I disagree with, this is wrong, and now he's going to tell me like, oh, you should just get like a flame worth almost 200 bill, right? Like,
Yeah.
then you're losing
way.
even more of your argument. But I just thought it was kind of interesting just to look at the value because I was curious because that's so fucking disgusting. And
Yeah,
as a drop
it's
as well,
crazy.
the rates of that is like.
Yeah, so definitely lucked out in both of those.
Is transposing dumb such a priority? You have to buy flames for it. Is more important than flaming like arcane gear and weapon. Typically, you're transposing your Dominator pendant before arcanes even remotely come into play. Typically, I would say in the past it was I would say I only buy flames for either arcanes or for transposing. That's the only thing I buy flames for. Everything else is just like slowly over time, kind of on the side, or getting extra drops, like for Cygnus, for example, right? You just open up and you see if you get something nice, or like for Pink Holy Cups, people do that as well, right? You just check out new cups, do more Pink Bean runs, and see if you get something that's worth replacing. And if you do, then you move on, and if you don't, you just keep one extra, and then you kind of flame one on the side if you get flames, if it comes to that. Okay, are we discussing Andough's videos here? Yeah, but we're pretty much done now. And if you answer, but why skip Abzo just to go to Arcane when Abzo is more cost efficient? Well, you come back from that. Basically, we discussed it, Dreamok, but it's basically like if in his current situation, it wouldn't make much sense to go for Abzo because of how committed he already is in where he's at. But he does agree that for a lower level person, it makes more sense to go for Abzo than to go for the situation that he is in right now. Especially if people have a faster rate of progression in mind in the game than he does. Even if you don't want Abzo gear, why not clear the bosses for the crystals? Yeah, that was one point, right? The point of like the investment for the pre-quests. I don't know. Have you done the pre-quests in the meantime?
Yeah, so in the meantime, I did do part 4 for Damien, so I got Damien unlocked and I blew him up.
Easy money, right?
But yeah, so even in the comment section of that first video, I did say like, if you want to do the pre-quest, then like please do the pre-quest and please get that meso. It's just I do know like for casual players, they're not willing to invest those 6-7 hours into those pre-quests.
Yeah.
And if they want to avoid that, then I'm just showing you it's still possible for you to get to end game, and then eventually you'll still want to do those pre-quests because you're going to want to run Hard Lotus and Hard Damien. So.
Yeah, I think that was the main thing, right? The whether you can or whether you should. I think that was set the tone for everything else in the video.
Yeah, I sat through it in regular server already, so I didn't want to do it again, especially because I'm playing casual now, working full-time job, got classes.
Right. The pre-quests you mean, right? Like doing the whole, because I did Mysteria Through Time on non-reboot, and the first thing I said to myself when I was going back to reboot is like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say though, Mysteria Through Time, in time investment versus return, that Lotus pre-quest is way more value in on the return.
Yeah.
There. Yeah.
And Tillian Guardian isn't even best in slot anymore. So.
No, yeah. And, it's so much easier to get any kind of Android with a shop as well, so it doesn't make much sense, Okay. So 22-star Cygnus is the play. Yes, I'm glad everyone paid attention. Good job, chat. Yeah. Okay. So I hope everyone learned something today. Or not, is just thinking about some things. So just because you disagree doesn't mean you have to completely ignore it. Also, just because you agree doesn't mean that you have to take everything for fact. Nuance, things are in the middle. But yeah, Andy learned from this. Freeze got to plug his video, so that's cool. And I thought that was the biggest irony. I thought that were like people were thinking that you were trying to like launch your career, so you were trying to be as offensive as possible, and then the Freeze guy makes his response video, which is, you know, a little bit harsh towards you, but I kind of get it, you know, trying to like play into the narrative a little bit, and then
a little ironic.
And then he plugs his shit at the end. It was like, I'm not blaming anyone because, you know, we're all just like hustling out here, but like I thought it was pretty funny. I don't know if he did it ironically. If he did, like, kudos. But yeah. Does he need graphics? Oh, I think he said he didn't need any graphics. But who knows, man? He might become full-time MapleStory content creator when he finally gets completely fed up with his job. Who knows? There's a future in antagonistic MapleStory content for you, as was demonstrated here. People hate me, of course not, Vision. Nuance in my mushroom game. Okay, cool. I think we're cool to wrap it up here. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you appreciated direct contact a little bit. It was easier for me, of course, to contact you because of, you know, you're in the guild and in the community, of course, but appreciate that a little bit more than people just like shouting at you. I know that I would personally enjoy that more.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate it a lot. Yeah.
And yeah, we're not letting you get away with shit either. We're holding your feet to the fire here, so I think that's also good. But you've already said, yeah, that you've learned a lot from the comment section and from the reactions from people. And I think it just ultimately just helps a lot just to see the maths from Freeze as well, right? That he put up, and you're like, oh, that is actually kind of a lot. I probably just underestimated by just looking at the base stats versus looking at the upgraded stats. It is actually quite a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and I saw that you updated the video to see like this is not Scardor's advice. Even though it's not super necessary, but I appreciate you doing that at least. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us and for explaining. And here's to the next video having even more better research and reaching more people and giving better advice.
Yeah, maybe in 2024. But thank you.
When the next video comes out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a
Have a good day.
Yep. You too. Bye. All right. So that's it. Now I'm gonna ironically plug as well. Look over there on the right side. You see what that is? That is tutorials completed for Mech Arena. Okay. Mech Arena. I'm gonna put a link in the chat. You guys can help me out. I just help you guys out. You guys can help me out by just logging into the game and playing the tutorial with my link, okay? I appreciate you a long time. And if we hit big goals, I'm going to gift subs in the Twitch chat. And if we reach the final goal, I'm going to live stream on MapleFest. I'll make it happen, okay? So if you guys want that, you guys sign up and work on it.
And sent him into battle.
What am I hearing?
It's for the greater good.
What am I listening to? Why was the star request on? It was low-key poggers? Why did you request that? Stop! Stream elements. You're messing up my steez. Okay. But yes, so yeah, let me know what you guys thought about the whole process, about this outline of the video. If you thought it was way too long, if you thought it was unnecessary, if it was actually helpful for you. Yeah, any and all thoughts are appreciated. Well, yeah, they're welcomed. They might not be appreciated. We'll see how you word them. See you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace. Low-key poggers.